Hey guys, Jack here. It's the holiday season, so I hope you're all enjoying that quality family time. But if you're still able to get in some games of Battlefield, then you can enjoy some new festive treats. As of the 21st of December, a new custom game mode was added to the game called Blind Delivery. This puts you in a game of war pigeons, but the minimap is turned off and you can only use handguns and explosives. This actually makes the game mode a bit trickier. If the enemy team does in fact release a pigeon, you've got to shoot it down. It's alright, but I think with a lot of these custom game modes, they are interesting for a couple of games, but perhaps not something that you're going to play regularly, especially since they get replaced every 2 weeks anyway. Next, we've got the Holiday Truce dog tag. Probably one of the most incredible war stories of the First World War was the Christmas truce in 1914. In the week leading up to the holiday, French, German and British soldiers had an unofficial truce and actually crossed trenches, exchanged greetings, food, souvenirs and sang songs together. They even played a game of football. The Royal Welsh Fusiliers played a match against the German Battalion 371 and of course the Germans won 2-1. To honour this truce, if you log into Battlefield 1 after the 22nd of December, you're going to be granted with the Christmas Truce dog tag. Definitely a nice touch from DICE, that one. Also on Christmas Day, BF1 will transform into FIFA and you're only going to be able to play football for the entire day. We also now have vehicle skins in the game. Now I know what you're going to say, Jack, there are already vehicle skins in the game, and yeah there are, but they're reasonably limited. But as of 22nd of December, vehicle skins will now appear in battle packs, and there is a much larger selection, some of which are really cool and a bit out there. Black Bess is still maybe my favourite for the Lancet, but what about the Chrome Dazzle though? Pretty blinging if you ask me. In this current battle pack revision, you can get a hold of either the Schnuck or the Desert Gold skins for the heavy tank, and just like weapon skins, they will rotate in each revision. Speaking of battle packs, if you log into Battlefield 1 between the 23rd and 29th of December, you're going to receive a free battle pack, and if you own premium and log in between those dates, you'll also get 2 superior battle packs, so fill your boots. As well as holiday treats, we recently also got really good insight into the first DLC coming in March, and this is what the title of the video is about. The first DLC is called They Shall Not Pass, and it will introduce the French army to the game, and thanks to some concept art posted by DICE in a blog post, we can get a really good idea of the direction that these maps are going to go and just the DLC in general. The very first image that was posted was of the garrison inside of Fort Vaux, located in Verdun. The image at first had a lot of people comparing it to Operation Locker because it was a small passageway and not much room for manoeuvre. And this fort was actually built between 1881 and 1884 at the cost of 1.5 million francs, and it would only house around 150 men. It comes as no real surprise that this would be a map fought between the French and the German armies, but I wouldn't expect a map purely based inside Fort Vaux, and I definitely think that the grounds surrounding the fort will play a big role as well. However, if it does stay within the fort only, then it could easily become the next Operation Lockers or the Metro of BF1. We got another concept image here showing off the trenches of Verdun, and it came with this description. Some 40 million artillery shells were fired over the course of the battle at Verdun, pulverising the ground, turning the earth into a shattered lunar landscape. And underneath some of those trenches, tunnels and underground fortresses provided for new experiences yet unexplored in Battlefield 1. And I've heard a lot of people asking, or at least wondering, if we would get any trench-based maps that encompass the insane trenches that were made during the First World War. Of course, DICE have tried to not make the game into a trench warfare game to make it more entertaining and more variety and just brighten the game up, I think. But with the French DLC, we could see one particular map that is predominantly trench warfare based, and that could certainly be a change of pace. Underground fortresses surrounded by trenches with a war-torn and broken landscape above. It would no doubt be really tough to make trenches exciting, but I've got faith that DICE can pull it off. And also I imagine on a map like this, if you actually go over the top, there's going to be very little cover and you're probably going to be an easy target. And we got this concept art image too of a barren land with a backdrop of burning trees, which actually looks pretty awesome. Here was the description. Around 1 million shells were fired in the opening barrage of the Battle of Verdun. This created massive forest fires around the fortified city and the battlefield surrounding it. Soldiers tell stories of being able to see these fires from far away. We really wanted to capture the initial fighting in a battle that came to be known as the Devil's Anvil. So for this map we can more likely expect the surrounding areas of the map to be on fire. But my question could be, is there areas of map where they could be set alight by the player using incendiary grenades or even the flamethrower elite? That would be pretty awesome. I remember the fire technology that they had in Far Cry 2 and that was incredible. And also DICE have already technically done a forest fire map if you look back to Battlefront and the Endor map that's set at a different time of day and on fire. But if you could do this in BF1 in this new map, changing the landscape and routes on the fly by denying player routes using fire, that could be very excellent. It's hard to say if the map will actually turn out to be that dynamic though. It may just be a visual element around the map, but it would be very cool to have it a bit more dynamic like this. One of the things that another concept image showed off was the destruction that the fighting around Verdun did to villages like Samonu and entire forests. DICE want players to experience the initial fighting of Verdun. I'm anticipating a destroyed village with just ruins and burnt down forests surrounding it. The last concept image was inspired by the Battle of Soissons in late 1918, and from what DICE have said, it was inspired by the massive French tank assaults and it revolved around the fighting over the Aisne River. But here is the really interesting part, and definitely the part that got me intrigued. It says that something big lurks around the village of Fisme. Now the Easter egg hunter in me wants this to be a giant Easter egg again, but in reality it's more than likely describing a new type of behemoth. Still, it sounds pretty interesting. And this is where it gets very fun. A Reddit user called Agiro made a post about that comment and linked some images of a German tank called the K-wagen. The K-wagen was this magnificent, gigantic German tank that would hold 27 crew. It weighed 120 tons and it was 13 meters long by 6 meters wide. It was huge. It also fits in with the concept image because it did describe huge tank battles, so I'm thinking that this map could be very, very large. And imagine driving that thing around in a battlefield map with all the gunner positions and just being an absolute menace on the battlefield. I think a mega tank behemoth would be wicked, and I'd love to see it in the new DLC. It's just absolutely insane. It seems like it would fit right in with Battlefield 1, so here's hoping that that's the new behemoth we're actually going to see. Overall, the concept images were very cool, and it's nice of DICE to give us a tease for the DLC much longer than before we get like a teaser trailer or some actual footage of the DLC, because as we know, it ain't coming out till March. At the moment, that seems like a very, very long way away. In general, the post just showed off maps that were a lot more gritty and dark compared to some of the other brighter maps that we've got in the game currently. The addition of the French army will also add in some new weapons and vehicles, so I think it's going to be pretty cool and add more of those classic stereotype World War I images to the game. And lastly for today, the RSP or Rent a Server program. It's already rolled out and running, but as you know, it's not really in a state where people are very happy with it. Lots of basic functionality is missing, but DICE are working hard to resolve that and give players the features that they want and need. The first stage of that was a post from Alexander Hassoun, who is a producer on the Rent a Server program for BF1. And he highlighted a list of improvements that DICE want to make to the service. It's important to remember though that this list is what DICE wants to achieve, and so it doesn't really mean that everything here will actually make it to the game. It's not a guaranteed feature list, unfortunately. There is however some pretty good stuff in here that if implemented would make the Rent a Server program 100 times better than it already is, but still not perfect. The first item on the list is an in-game admin control panel, a screen that you could reach from inside the game that would allow you to perform server-based actions like kicking or banning players, bearing in mind that that itself is a feature that DICE want to add because right now it's just not possible to do that. Currently there's no way you can just use a control panel to change the map on your server. You can't do it. In BF4 you could Alt-Tab on PC and use a program like Procon, which had all of the functionality that you would need. You could kick someone, change the map, change a ton of settings on the fly, so an in-game control panel would be much needed, but for it to be useful it has to have the ability to actually do these things that Procon could do, like kick players. Another thing on the list would be VIPs, and that would be a system where you can add players onto a list that guarantees them priority access to the server over any other players. And that's something that community-based servers really need, and they always had in other versions of Battlefield. It's not ideal if you're paying for a server for your community, but the server is full, and you can not only never get on it yourself, but you can't kick anyone to make room either. My standard issue rifle server, for example, is nearly always full with a queue of 10 people, and I can rarely ever get to play on it, which is a shame. Of course, there is one feature that we all know has been requested: passworded servers, and of course DICE is aware of this, and while you could be forgiven for thinking it should have been in as default, but hopefully DICE can get this added in as soon as possible. Content creators, tournaments, communities, so many people need passworded servers for so many reasons, and it's a big issue with them not having them in the game when you want to record stuff. As well as this, DICE are looking at some new server settings, such as having squad leader spawns only, harking back to BF2, turning behemoths on and off, that would be very welcomed by a lot of people, and whole magazine reloads, a previous hardcore setting. What DICE have said is that they're looking at giving custom rented servers priority in the server browser over the official DICE servers, and that makes sense to me because if you've got a community server, it's going to make it a lot easier to fill if it's not being drowned out in the server browser by all of the official servers. A few server browser presets could be handy here so you can filter exactly what servers you want to find, and I also still think that custom servers should be completely left out of the quick play option. Honestly, there are some really good features being looked at here in the post by Alexander, but I know that there will still be negative comments about how most of these should have actually been in the game at launch, and they're pretty much all features that we had in previous games. And that's true, but DICE is working hard to make it right, and if we can get all of these features, it will make the RSP a much better service. Right now though, there is no timescale on any of these features, so we just need to watch this space. And yes, in his post there are still some things missing that I would like to see added to the program. So that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button down below, that would be incredible. I hope everyone has an amazing break over Christmas, and a big thank you once again from me for tuning into my videos every single day. I'm going to sign off for now. Love you guys lots, and I'll see you in the next one.